Welcome back to Nelson Mandela Bay on this auspicious occasion. We've had lots of weather here today. We're looking up at the clouds. We're expecting it to rain any minute, and just a few minutes ago the sun was shining. But when I spoke to you earlier this morning, Ayanda, we had torrential downpours here in Nelson Mandela Bay, but a very good sign, they say, that the rain is. So good news on a day like this. And as I mentioned this morning, lovely stories coming out of South Africa and Nelson Mandela Bay about 20 years of democracy and how we are celebrating our freedom. You'll remember we spoke to that young couple who have love across the colour lines and how they said it's so fantastic to be able to love freely in South Africa. Now, I've got another wonderful story coming out of Nelson Mandela Bay. I'm standing here this morning. I'm going to introduce you to him in a minute. He's Dr. Ntsikelelo Breakfast. Now, just to give you a little bit of background about him, many years ago he dropped out of school and he sort of fell by the wayside and he mixed up with the wrong crowd and he was earning a living by selling fruit. Today he's a doctor, he's a lecturer at Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University, and he's got a great story to tell and just how he's been inspired by 20 years of democracy and how he's been inspired about this wonderful country of our South Africa. Dr. Breakfast, good morning, and thank you for getting up early. Just take us back. Why did you originally fall out of school way back then?
Well, first of all, I was born here in PE in KwaZulu, in the early 80s. My parents and I, we moved to New Brighton, late 80s. Then we moved to Zwide. I can't remember when it was. And in the mid-90s, I dropped out of school. It's a long story. Suffice to say that at some point, I threw in the towel. And I think the turning point in my life was when I started to go to church. I think that changed my philosophical outlook to life. I went back to school. I committed myself to the church and I gave my life to the Lord. And today I'm a scholar.
Dr. Breakfast, 20 years of democracy. I know it's been an inspiration for you. Can you just talk us through the inspiration part for you?
Well, first of all, I have mixed feelings about our democracy. I think we have a mixed bag of democracy. In as much as you have people like myself who come from humble beginnings, you also have a whole lot more of people who are still bearing the brunt of poverty, who are unemployed. We have quite a number of challenges, inequality, social ills, and so on, and so forth. So our democracy is not a simplistic phenomenon. You know, there are quite a number of variables at play.
Talking about yourself, who's been the most influential in your life? I mean, you're a lecturer now at a major university.
Well, two names that come to mind. Dr. Bradshaw was my supervisor at master's level, and Professor Haynes was also my supervisor at PhD level. I think they took me by hand and they actually mentored me. They worked with me. They've taught me a great deal about scholarship, about research, how to publish, and I still look up to them even at the moment,
Let's just wrap quickly with this. If you had to give a message to many of those youngsters running around in the dusty township streets, you know what can be achieved.
Yes.
What would your message be to them today?
Look, the only way out of poverty, in my opinion, is education. Education can take you places. Some things in life are slow, but in the end, they rewarding, and hard work pays off.
Now, you're a doctor. What are your challenges? What is your plans for the future?
We'll talk about that in private.
Okay, cool. Dr. Breakfast, thanks very much. From the words of Dr. Ntsikelelo Breakfast, education is the key in the new South Africa, and his message to the youngsters, make it happen, go out there and get an education. And from all these happy stories here in Nelson Mandela Bay, let's go back to the studio and back to Ayanda.